Dobre rano, Bratislava, Dakujem, for this opportunity. I'm sorry I don't know more than that. I would like to give you in this presentation the point of view of the government on how it looks on the challenges that cyber brings, but also on the opportunities that it presents. But first, perhaps a few facts about Israel, where I come from. It's a small country. I think Slovakia is about 2.5 times the size of Israel, but we have more people, about 8.5 million, with a GDP of $390 billion. And we're growing slowly, 4.4%. Now I'm going to scare you a little bit, not too much. This is the only scary slide. Then I'm going to talk about some more facts and tell you what we do, and also invite you to see for yourselves. So the scary stuff is that if you look at the numbers of the data of the people that have been breached, you see 1.2 million, you see 3 billion hacked, you see 140 people, 250,000 computers, 150 countries. The numbers are growing and they are vast. And also there is a critical infrastructure, as Vladimir, I think, mentioned, that cyber can hurt physically. Critical infrastructure, and not only critical infrastructure, other physical apparatuses. Another interesting fact is that, according to estimation, every year 170 million new malwares are being invented. And when you look at the cost, the average cost, and these are American numbers, about $1.5 million just to clean the system. It's average, of course, and $13 million average cost of cybercrime. Obviously, if you look at Maersk, for example, 300 million damages. If you look, I think only yesterday it was shown that a Mexican company is ransomware for $4 or $5 million. The numbers are troubling, and it really affects everybody. Now, the motto of the Israeli government is that people will be able to trust the internet and continue to do business like they trust the water coming from the Lake of Galilee to their home. So the government needs to ask itself, what is the role of the government in that case? Because the classical situation, the government knows where it needs to be. It needs to be on the border. We have the enemy on one side on the left, we have the civilian on the other side. The government is protecting the border. And there are different considerations like range, deployment, resources. All these considerations are becoming irrelevant when we talk about cyber, where you see on the right that the attacker is already within the premises of the civilian market, in their computers, in their systems, etc. So there is a big question mark on sovereignty. Where does the Israeli or the Slovakian CyberSphere begins? And where does it end? And who is the enemy? We don't know where the attack is coming from, because it's coming from not the attacker, from going through different channels and proxies. And there are other considerations that we need to take into considerations, like there is the computing power, third-party involvement, because the attack goes through countries that are innocent. Some of them may not have diplomatic relation with you, and you still need to negotiate and to work and collaborate together on cyber attacks. There is a big gap in human resources, skilled human resources on cyber. The estimations are that today we lack in the world about 1.5 million people, and it's going to grow up till 5 million people in the coming 4 years. There is a gap in international norm. I think Vladimir mentioned that as well. And as we speak, we have groups in the UN speaking about different approaches and what are the norms. Obviously, the legal will say, yeah, international norms applies, but it's really not elaborate, and there are a lot of gray area that needs to be explored and defined. In cyber, at least in cyber protection, cyber security, we care more about the attacks. We care less about the attackers. We want to mitigate the attack. That's our main priority. There is the involvement of non-state actor, crime organizations, terror organizations, and also multinational cooperation, MNCs. They do play a very significant role. Sometimes they affect the market much more than states. They are richer, bigger, and they are dealing with technology in a way that will affect the market significantly. And there are also, mix-up in the language between safety and security. I'll talk more about it perhaps later. So our approach is that this is a multi-stakeholder model, meaning everybody has 100% responsibility. The IT people are the front men. They are responsible 100% to secure their own system. There are also sensors, because what happened in their system may affect other companies and perhaps the entire market or other sectors. So we have to work together, all sectors, and go through that challenge. The INCD, the Israeli National Cyber Directorate scope of responsibility, is basically the entire market except the special entities, which is the intelligence agencies, defense forces, etc. Those are responsible to secure their own system. But other than that, starting from critical infrastructure on the left, where we have authority by law to tell them how they need to protect their systems, and they have to pay for it and they have to comply. And also, of course, ministries, government ministries, etc. This is not by law, this is by government resolution. And all the rest of the market with no authority, plainly, voluntarily, and recommendations. So we need to give the market added value. We need to give the market professionalism and help all the businesses and also the men in the street protect their computers, their systems, and their devices. And our national strategy is relatively very simple. First layer would be robustness. These are all the routine actions that everybody has to take. It's to make sure that most of the regular small attacks are being thwarted and repelled. It's doing the patches, updating the antiviruses, like having your bags checked before you go into an airport, or washing your hand before you eat. It's the basic stuff, basic cyber hygiene. But we know that that's not enough, and always there will be cyber incidents. This is why we need the second phase, which is the resilience. It's a systemic and event-driven capacity. So it's like calling an ambulance, undergoing an operation. And for that layer, we do have our CERT, we have our IR teams, incident response teams. We have the entire mechanism to handle and manage cyber incident. Those two first layers are dealing with the attacks. And again, the idea there is that the company or the business or the sector or the economy will go back to normal operation as soon as possible. That's the idea. Sometimes it's not enough. We have advanced persistent attackers that needs to be dealt with. So this is where we would go to other agencies and ask them to take care of the attacker. It could be also the Justice Department going after a hacker somewhere else in the world, and again, you need international cooperation for that. This is, for example, how our CERT looks like, built in operating since 1917. It's working 24/7. We have a number, an emergency number, not 911, but 119. The 911 was not available. And basically, we receive calls from each and every citizen, business, organization, whatever. So this is like a sensor that tells us what is happening in the market, and we will help everybody in different level of engagement. Obviously, we're not going to send an IR team to one grandma's laptop, but we will refer them to links that could help in case of ransomware, databases, etc. We also have on the same floor sectorial certs, like financial cert, like energy center, and these are all centers that were established together in collaboration with other ministries, working on the same place, talking the same language, but specializing in different sectors. So the flow of information is very important. For example, you see here a CyberNet platform that we developed. It's like the Facebook of cyber, if you like, where everybody can share the attacks that they are having. They could do it anonymously. So banks, for example, they don't like other banks to know that or their customers to know that they have been hacked. So they can share this information anonymously, and everybody knows what kind of IOC to block and IPs to block. The second version would be in English. Sorry, this one is in Hebrew. And you could automatically download it to your system so that in a matter of minutes or seconds, your system could be protected. We have so far about 1,000 users. This is an example of an attack, a phishing attack, started as a phishing attack on our banking system. These are sites of Israeli banks. even better than the site themselves, but 100% alike. They're just faster. And through phishing attack by PayPal, they managed to get people's password to their bank account and started stealing money. In a matter of 20 minutes after we got the first alert, all the banks knew and shut off all the IP. So this is our immediate ROI for the investment. You invest in such a center and it really saves you money. For the robustness part, I mentioned that we're working with critical infrastructure, very direct, very closely. We're also giving the market guidance on a voluntary basis. We publish. I will skip that. We do certification for cyber professions, and we are also making sure that our supply chain is protected by an app that we developed so people could really go in. There are some challenges and opportunity that I want to mention. 5G, we're going to have 20 times faster, and IoT. Everything is going to be connected, and we need to have a look on the security of that and to build an architecture that will be more secure. AI is adversarial AI. It's going to affect both sides, the good side and the bad. Insurance, we see that there is a market failure in that. Some of the companies may be insured, or they think they are. But when it comes to it, Marx, for example, Marx didn't get the insurance because it was a state-sponsored attack, and that's in the small letters. On the bottom, you see financial security, medical security. These are all initiatives that we are taking as a government and calling the public sector, the academy to join forces. We could give them our data. We could work with them in order to find and develop solutions. Aviation cybersecurity is also interesting and concerning because there is not really a systemic solution for that yet. It is an attractive domain. The regulation is very heavy and complicated. And it's not a matter of is there an immediate threat or not. It's only a matter of time. There is a tendency of proliferation. Advanced cyber tools could be proliferated and get to the wrong hands. And we have to have a strategy that builds really a systemic solution. We're also responsible to make sure, I mentioned the human resources gap, so we are establishing cyber center, research centers in our universities, and we have also national programs for youth, basically at the age of 14, focused on the periphery. This is how our cyber ecosystem looks in Beersheba. We have already the university there, we have our CERT, the IDF, the military communication units are going to be there. So and of course the private sector, we already have a presence of about 70 companies, 30 multinational corporations are present there. And the idea is that everybody talks cyber. International cooperation is a must, is really for surviving. You can see the number, I won't go on them. And a little bit about our cyber industry. It's basically growing. We have about 500 companies for cyber. We have a presence of 30 plus multinational corporations. We actually attract about 20% of global investment on cyber are going to Israel. And that's an interesting number. And it's growing. You see the number of deals and the number of dollars that is invested. This is according to an American study of the top 500 cybersecurity companies. One of them is here present. You see that Israel is right after the US. So to sum it up, because my time is up, it is an exponential gap, as Vladimir, I think, mentioned, and it's not only a challenge, it's also an opportunity for government, for the economy. It's not just an IT issue, it's also a CEO issue for the company and the board of directors. Sharing is not only caring, it's also surviving. You have to share information, you have to collaborate. And for the Israeli system, ecosystem, I really invite you to come see for yourself. We have a cyber tech at the end of January and the Cyber Week at the end of June, beginning of July. Dakuyem for the opportunity.